Welcome back to I Move Freely with me, Rachel, your I Move Freely instructor. So by this time we have hopefully begun to move more freely, feel more confident with our movement, got to those sticky points with some of our muscle energy techniques, the joint mobilizations, and of course those wonderful nerve mobilization finishes. In this particular session, similar to before, different moves. We're going to work through the pelvis, the spine and the shoulders, some of the release techniques, the muscle energy techniques. Then we're going to load the body. So we're starting to advance some of those moves on. So while this is still great for beginners, certainly those who followed the previous videos to this one, please do be your own coach when it comes to some of the techniques I show you, or the ranges, or the styles, or the speeds. Really think about, is it right for you at this time? So I'm just giving you a whole series of examples that you can follow if you feel good about that, or you can stick with some of the earlier techniques if you prefer those and feel that they're more appropriate to your level and your ability. So this session, 40-45 minutes. Again, a mat, comfortable clothing, shoes for those standing moves. We're going to do some standing ones today. And also this resistance band again, which again gives us something to start to challenge using our body. You ready? All right. So we're going to start on the back with the 4 sign. So everyone's favourite. So having a lie back in our crook lying position, crossing one ankle over the other. Then we're going to rotate the leg into the hand. The hand is the block, and it's that lovely 20%, kind of almost like, it's almost like a relaxation technique, isn't it? Not just for the muscles that it's affecting, but also to bring the mind into this kind of preparation piece, ready for this 40-minute session. So when we've done those 20 seconds, we swap sides. And just remember that your ankle bone, the outside ankle bone, should kind of clear the thigh so that the ankle's not twisting on the knee. Hand on the inside, rotating with that isometric static contraction of resistance, that nice low level, just to get us started. We're going to alternate these with the opposite side of the body, so where we're rotating. We're going to add in now. Now this one's going to feel a little bit challenging. We're going to work the adductor muscles. So you're probably familiar with our previous techniques, option 1, option 2, and option 3. Here I'm going to give you a 4th option. So I suggest you take your arms out to the side. Now this time we're going to use our bracing that we've used in the previous videos to keep the hips and spine level while we take one leg down to the side. So my voice might change as I do that because I'm having to brace harder. Now I'm going to change sides to really try and keep the hips level. So it's that imaginary spirit level across those hip bones. Or you can even use a small bottle of water just with a little water left in it. And again, you can alter your ankle position. So I'm going to use a slow pace. I have to be really conscious of bracing harder when I get to about there. So what we're doing is, again, several bangs for our buck. We're working those hip ranges. We're loading the inside of the thigh muscles. And we're also challenging stability. So all the bracing cues and techniques that I've given you previously come into play now. So trying to keep that lumbar spine as still as you can, trying to keep the hips nice and level. If that's too much, then you can just go back to the bilateral version using both legs. You can hear through my voice, it's far less challenging. It feels less challenging. Legs go down. So we're going to do the leg press release next. So lace the fingers behind the hands. We do both legs at the same time this week, pressing the thighs down into the hands using 20% hip extension effort. Try and relax the neck and shoulders. And what you'll notice is, a little bit like the last session, we could actually affect those upper trap muscles, the muscles on top of the shoulders at the same time. So when we've done these, we're going to rock up onto our bottom, for some V-sits. So we've done these previously on a chair, but what we can do here is actually just lean the body weight back as we take the legs away. And the point at which you lean back, you're really having to engage and brace through the hip flexors, the opposite side of the hip to those hip flexors. And again, there are options where you could just sit and cycle. So it's really about using ideas, concepts, putting them together. What we're doing here is working the front of the hip. I'm going to use the V-sit right here, a couple more, and then sit back. So legs out straight, we're going to come into a shoulder release. So we're going to release the internal rotators by putting the knuckles on the inside of the forearm. I'm going to turn the near side arm into my knuckles with 20% effort. The reason I want to stay here is because of the move that I'm going to do afterwards. So just pressing the forearm in towards my other arm to release those little muscles that they come underneath the scapula. They can make your shoulders feel a little sticky. And I'm going to swap to the other side. And again, I'm not worrying too much about my brace. You know, I don't want to be too slouchy. I want to kind of keep my body ready, but I don't need to be super braced up at this point. It is still a release technique. So when we've done that on either side, we're now going to use the band. We're going to put it around the feet, bring the feet together, but from here, elbows come to the side, and we're going to externally rotate the arms using the resistance. Now remember, you can make it harder or easier depending on your band, or if you're using your leggings or a sweat top or something. The tension you create is going to also decide how hard you work. So I'm just working the opposite side of the shoulder, the real rotation work. From here, we're going to get dynamic. I know this is already dynamic, but a little bit more dynamic. All right. So the band goes down. We're going to come up to standing, and again, use whichever method you see fit. So you can face the camera to watch first of all if you want. So we're going to go into a side lunge. So you step in, step out, bend the outside knee, and then push back. What we're watching for is that we don't get too much of a buckle. Don't worry if it does it a little bit, and then a push away. Also, if you want to play with your depth, just to get used to it proprioceptively. So what we're doing is being more dynamic, maybe a little bit cardiovascular here as well, because your big muscles in your legs are going to require quite a bit of oxygen to really get that movement going. And again, just let the arms kind of go where they want to go. You can hear my breathing starting to pick up, and we'll hold it there. And the next move, call a goblet squat or a body weight squat. From the side, we bring the arms into the front of the body, and we're literally just going to squat down. Now, again, use ranges that you feel comfortable with. We've got no weight on our back, so if you can, get all the way down. Don't worry about your back flexing without any weight on. Just keep your feet, you can adjust the width to a position that feels good. And then when you've had a couple that feel okay, hands behind the head, and let's see if that changes. It definitely changes it for me. So it's really making me work quite hard to stay upright, because there's this tendency to want to fall forwards. So it's making us work around the back. How are we doing? We're going to come down to the mat, coming onto the front, and we're going to go for a full push-up this time. So we're using 3 big compound moves: the lunge, the squat, and the press up. And there's lots of variations. So the first one would be knees below hips, hands just outside your shoulders, but below your chest. And then from here, just lowering the face towards the floor or the body, and then pressing away. And we're really trying to get, if we can, see if we can get that 90 degrees in the elbow line there to get some good depth, get some tension through the chest. If that feels a little easier, you can take the knees further away that creates a bigger gap between your points of contact. And we'll leave the toes version for now. And then we do it all again. So take eye down, nice and easy through the transitions. From here, the 4 sign, ankle across, and breathe. So I've really been looking forward to this all day. And I quite like this combination of release, strength, and then move. And you can feel the way over the weeks we've started to progress the moves, make them more complex, more coordinated, more proprioceptively stimulating, but also a little bit more intense in terms of the amount of load we're moving, even though it still is really our own body and a resistance band. Changing sides. Even using our body, we can make it more intense just from the levers or the contact points with the ground. Can either make it harder or easier. So keep it sensible, being your own coach. So we're going to do those straight leg abductions. Remember those? So taking the legs up, arms out to the side, definitely if you're doing one leg at a time. And again, we try and keep the pelvis and the spine still and level, and bracing around the trunk. Working the hip range and load. You can take it slower, or even if you're using less range, you could stop short if going any further is just too intense for you. Or again, you've got your double leg option. Coming straight into our leg press. So we've got a nice little I move freely flow going on. Pressing the legs down, letting the knees relax. Maybe just getting a sneaky little upper trap release in there as well. As we breathe, just relaxing again after the more dynamic stuff. We rock up for the V-sits or the cycle. Again, you choose, as long as we're loading the front of the hip. And ideally, if I have the fingers pointing towards the bottom rather than the other way around, it just gives you the right place to be on the joint if you're moving around a little bit. And then from there, really working those hip flexors with the weight of the leg and also the torso, because as you lean back, you're really lengthening either end. Okay, back up to sitting. Let's release the shoulders with our 20% of rotation. Again, shoulders back and relaxed. And then we change to the other side. And again, it's just using the flat of the knuckles I find is more comfortable. Some people use the hand. That's fine as well. I just quite like that neat kind of knuckles in there. And then we bring the feet together. Remember, we take the band or the sweater. And then from there, draw the elbows in and then rotate backwards. So going in the opposite direction. So we go from hips to shoulders. We're going to go back to legs again. Remember what we did next? Lunges and squats. Who's excited? So let's feel excited about our ability to move around our own body, using our body weight to really enjoy improving tissue tolerance, movement quality, physical health. So again, we're going to start with those lunges. Use a depth that you feel good with. If you want to play on the end, feel free to just have a little feel. Rather than the reps and sets, it is really about enjoying the movement, seeing how it feels around your joints. You'll see I'm a bit stickier on that side. Otherwise, you can just use the strength and the movement to lift the heart rate a little bit, work the big muscles in the legs. Let's go one more. And then we're into our goblet body weight squat. We can start with the hands behind, come on down, and we're kind of pushing the knees out of the way, because if we have the knees feet on a narrow stance. We can do that. But you get to a point where the femur actually hits into the pelvis. So if we take the feet out just a little way, but actually push the knees out of the way, that actually opens up at the hip, and it will allow you to kind of sink, almost sink between the knees. And if you don't like the hands behind, just bring them in front. So a goblet squat, normally you would be holding something in the front, and we're coming down for our push-ups. So you can choose your level 1. Elbows going out. Level 2, knees away, but bring the chest back over the hands. You're going to feel that one a little bit more. And now we want to try and control our trunk. So now we are utilising some of that bracing in here. If you remember, we've done some of the prone bracing in this position on the knees. So we want to use that so that when we do our push-up, we really don't want to be flexing or sagging, extending as we come down. We want to brace and control those movements. 2 more rounds. All right. Back down. Let it go, release. Relax the neck. Think about the amount of effort you're using. Keep it nice and low. Take some time just to focus again in a nice stable position. And remembering each of these, what we've seen over the weeks, can be done sitting on a chair, sitting on the floor, leaning against the wall. We can use a variety of models just to keep it interesting, and also just to try them in different positions, see what your body feels like. So it's, all the movements are almost tests and benchmarks in themselves, just to see how you feel moving around your environment, just to get into position to do one of these I Move Freely techniques. Legs go up, arms out, 1 leg or 2 legs. People sometimes say, how should I breathe? And I think as long as you are able to brace at the wider position, which is where you're going to need more tension around the abdominals. So often there's a talk about a breath in and then exhale on the effort. This one, you've almost got effort going in both directions. So timing wise, as long as you've got that tension at the end there, and then on the way back up, and then it gets easier. And then it gets tension as it goes further out, and then it comes back up and gets easier. So you're going to hear through my voice, trying to guide you on where you really need to focus. Just breathe through it as feels good for you. Leg press, sneaky upper trap release at the same time, lifting the shoulders like we did last session. I'm going to come into that V-sit. So the V-sit gives us a little bit of work in the upper body as well, simply through the fact that your shoulders are taking some of the weight as you move back. Your abdominals are certainly playing in to contribute to controlling the leg as it moves away, and then obviously the hip flexors are the prime movers. So they're the dominant muscles being loaded, the ones that are often held short for long periods of time if we're sitting. So they really do need some work, which is why this one you may well feel in your back. As long as it's not uncomfortable, if it is, you can literally come back to some of our earlier progressions here or here as an alternative. Up for the shoulders. Little transition sliding up there, and again releasing that rotation. And then changing sides. Neck and shoulders nice and relaxed. Bring the feet together. Grab your bands. Pull back and then rotate. So really trying to work those muscles that externally rotate. That you can probably see a little bit going on there. I'm trying to get them going, so really squeezing back. And then we come up for our lunges and squats to follow with push-ups. You ready? So, taking the lunge out. And can you see I'm getting a little bit of a push? So again, that might just give you that, because that's the heaviest point, that's the longest lever, that's the bit where you might need to give your body a little bit of a push to come out of it. And that's what's going to just push your heart rate up as well. Not a bad thing. Rather than a slower move, it might feel harder somehow. But again, do what feels right. Some will feel exactly as I've described, and others will find it different. I'm going to do 2 more. And then for a air squat, goblet squat, body weight squat, hands behind. And anybody out there who's feeling super strong, if you wanted to use a weight or a kettlebell, or if you've got a dumbbell or something, you could have that in front just to add a contrast. And if you're in a shorter range, perfectly fine as well. Coming back down for the push-ups. Choose your level. Knees under hips for the easy version. Otherwise, and when we get to the top, just make sure that you're finishing. So rather than kind of these semi-range push-ups, try and make it feel good. Make it feel like you feel strong in your own body. Really give a push. Particularly females tend to have a weaker upper body. Generally, that trend, we have stronger legs comparative to our upper body. And so being able to use body weight to gain some strength and confidence in our movement is really key for a symmetry of health and strength throughout the whole body. Last round. Come back down. So, little rotation. And you should be probably from this little routine, this flow, be feeling quite warm because of the nature of the squats and the lunges. Also followed by the push-ups. We're using big muscle groups in those legs particularly, and the body is going to have to work hard, and that's what really brings the temperature up. Heart rate goes up, breathing gets a little bit quicker. So these sections feel quite nice. We just let everything calm down again for our final round. So I'm going to go arms out. I'm going to carry on with this unilateral single legs at a time. Remember your options. Try to keep those hips still. And thinking about the joint space. How does it feel? It's always as well a point where people will often say, oh, I get a pop. Feels like a click on one side, these types of movements. Lace the fingers behind. We'll carry on as I'm talking. Pressing down. Is that okay? Is usually the question I get asked. So more often than not, if there's no pain, then there's nothing to worry about. We have bony nodules and knobbles and condyles within our body, and when you get into certain joint angles, sometimes the connective tissues just pop over one of our prominences, and we're all a little bit asymmetrical, so it may happen on one side and not the other. I get it on my left side in certain positions on my back, from here, the V-sit. So if you get like a click or a pop, as long as there's no pain, as long as it's not uncomfortable, it's okay to keep going. Sometimes I have to kind of tweak the leg around just to kind of crack it so it feels like I can move again. And again, perfectly fine, as long as there's nothing that you think offers any concern other than that popping, potentially just some soft tissue popping over your nodules. All right, so let's release the shoulders back. And then from there, changing. Breathe. Grab your band or your resistance tool, feet together, elbows back, and then turning out. Now, each of the flows I've given you, because of our timing wise, you can feel free to do extra if you want to do more reps and sets, but I Move Freely really is just about feeling the moves, seeing how they go. Okay, getting a bit stronger, but ideally you would want to attend a strength workout, maybe with one of the other Her Spirit coaches like Mel, to really improve strength in that sense. This is a preparation for it. And obviously I was talking about the push-ups as a strength move, which they are, but if you really want to progress your strength and build and tone muscle, that would probably be more in another class. This is just about feeling where we are strong, feeling where we are maybe weaker, feeling our sticky points, and allowing the joints and structures to glide a little bit easier. I'm going to do one more. And then the air or bodyweight squats, goblet squat if you choose, or bring the hands in front, push the knees out the way, use whichever range you would like. And then you're ready for some push-ups. And then we come back in, hands go out, take my knees back. And again, just bracing. So I don't want my belly to be kind of hanging down and relaxed. I want to kind of tighten it, pull it in, so we get that additional benefit of controlling through the spine, which is where we're going to come to shortly. But before that, we need to come back to sitting. So from here, just going to do a few glides before we go into some bracing towards the end of the session. How are we doing? All right, so lifting high, sit bones nice and firm, keep them there, nice and easy glides. Just a few on either side. We're going to do 2 rounds. So when we've done 12 of these, we're just going to move and use the ranges. So here we're just gliding the muscle, just so that we allow it to release a little bit before we take a hand down. Take a reach over, separate through the shoulder and the hip, and then we come up, bring the hand in front, we take a look behind. So we've done this one before, and then we do the same on the other side. So breathing out into the rib cage, come back up, take a look over your shoulder, back to front, and then we're going to glide again. And again, just nice, steady gliding, just back to the release. Let that lower back go. Keep the butt firm, so don't get too lost in the back that you realise your hips are rocking. Keep the hips nice and level. Take the hand down, take the hand over. I love this stretch. And we're opening up, so we're really imagining all the tiny muscles in between your ribs, shoulder lifting, hip going down, and in between the ribs and the hip is the little muscle that we've released. When we come up, we then lengthen it in the other direction. We have a twist. So it's going from the ribs, from the hips to the ribs, and we're now lengthening it in a different direction. Inadvertently, at the same time, our spine gets a nice mobility drill as well. So each of those vertebrae, we're opening them up on this top side, and then again we get a nice bit of rotation through those joints as we look behind. So it's bracing time. So take a lie back. From here, let's just do some initiation first of all. So again, remembering, keeping that back still, just some bracing first. 50%. And imagining someone is going to give you a punch in the stomach, keeping the gap under the back, and then let it go. 75%. So not quite top end, but certainly pretty hard. And then let it go. Whichever cues help you, pulling up the pelvic floor, bracing, pushing, whichever one gets you to the point where you could take a punch to the stomach. That's really how we imagine it. Different cues help different people. So again, if you are okay with this, we're going to try a maximum contraction at the top end, still flat on the back, shoulders back and relaxed. So everything we've done prior to this has freed off this area. We now want to encourage it to feel nice and level and strong in this position. So that's stability and control. Are you ready? And release. So get in some arms and legs. So hands down by your sides, opposite hand, opposite leg. We're going to go straight into lengthening out, keeping the spine nice and still. Let's take around about 8 seconds from start to finish. So a nice long reach, focusing on the spine. You hear how it's getting a little harder when we get to that full range. And we're going to switch to the other side. So again, you can take your time. So even though you take a breath and relax in between, what we don't want to do is relax before everything is back into position. So we really want everything to be down then, and then we can relax. So again, to the side this time, brace, and then taking it out. In fact, I'm going to just take the arm out, just to give it a little more stability. Take it out. And our memory from earlier that we were doing, this then may feel easier or harder. It depends, I guess, on what your challenge is. I'm going to take the arm out. We do the other side. Bit of extra support here. So you can do these tiny adjustments that actually help you achieve what you want to. You ready to take both hands and feet? So feet first. And then we go side. And then I'm just going to bring my feet to about knee height to then extend. That was my clicking point. I don't know if you heard that on the mic. And then the other side. Again, taking a good 8 seconds out and back. And again, if you want, take a recovery in between, but don't let the brace go until everything's back down on the floor. So some of those may have felt relatively intense. They're quite good ones to practice a little bit longer, maybe even slower. Do a few repetitions just to really feel that stability and control around the pelvis and spine after those arm freely flows in advance. We're going to come on to all fours again though, to just advance the same concept onto the hands and knees. Same as we did last week, previous weeks. Find your midpoint, and then when you're there, we brace and extend. Bring it back. Trying to keep the hips, spine, shoulders still and level as we go the other way. And again, this is super challenging, balancing on just the 2 points. You can take a rest in between if you need to. Sit back off the knees and the wrists just to let that go for a moment, and then back in. Now the reason we want to do both lying on the back and the front, because when we're on our back, it's predominantly loading the front of the body. When we're on our front, as we lift the arms, it's actually loading the back of the body more. So what this gives us is an all-round sort of trunk control conditioning model, which is why we're just changing it around a bit. Some of the hip moves we've also done work through the sides, but you're very welcome to add some more on at the end if you wish. I'm going to go out to the side in opposition. Again, I'm trying to keep the hips nice and level, having to work super hard. Other way. And it is about trying to reduce the wobble as well. Now what we could start to add on is I'm going to extend the arms long ways, abduct them, bring them back, and then bring them down and breathe. Now you try to do the same the other way. You ready? Shall we try that one? Brace, extend, abduct, bring it back, bring it in, and breathe. One more each side. You ready? We're getting pretty advanced now. Even on a beginner level, we need to have more advanced moves. So out, side, small range, back, in, breathe if you need to, reset if you need to, and then one more. My shoulders. We're really feeling that one there. So how's that? How are we getting on? So we're going to have a little bit of mobility flow. We're going to start through on the knees. So just come into child's pose. So you can take the knees wide, and then you're going to slide the fingers forwards, resting the forehead down. And then from here, just coming up, making little tents with your fingertips. We'll get a stretch through the front of your chest. And trying, if you can, to get your bottom back resting on your on your heels. And then from here, we're going to take one hand and slide it under the armpit of the other hand, keeping the hand static with the tent, and then dropping back onto that bottom shoulder till we get a bit of a spine twist. Then we slide the hand back through, put it back into position, and then we switch. So again, sliding through, and again, once you've reached, just coming back slightly onto that bottom shoulder, coming back and onto the tented fingers. From here, we're going to come up for some cat-cow. So hands under shoulders, knees under hips. Lift the chest forwards, arching the back, and then we alternate with that flexed position. So really lifting, opening and expanding through the thoracic spine. And then swapping to the cow, back into the cat. And I usually wiggle a little bit in my shoulders here. Kind of have a little semi-twist. Again, just seeing how my ribs feel, how the hips feel. Alright, from here, I'm going to try that eye through the needle again, but this time from this upright position. So the bottom will stay over the knees, and it just gives us a different feel to a similar position when we have the bottom away from the heels. Use the other hand to bring us up, and we change and reach and really lean back to get that length again. Coming back to all fours. If you're comfortable to sit back on the knees, and then another one I quite like is just hooking the fingers under the knees, and again just arching, rounding the back, kind of almost hanging back on the knees to kind of get an anchor so I can really open up through the back of the shoulders. And this one transitions nicely into, I think it's known as a camel, so hands coming back. Then you can have the hands on the floor and just seeing if you can lift the hips. Now this is usually quite a sticky one for anybody who sits at a desk. I couldn't do this a little while back, but I've been practicing it, so I'm just going to come forwards a little way. So from here, fingers towards the toes, and I'm sure Sophie, her spirit coach Sophie, would have been showing you some of these in her yoga, far more beautifully positioned than me. Or obviously coming onto the toes and hands on heels, which for some may feel easier or harder, it really depends. But you can open up here, and this is really again lengthening down the front of the hips. So we're using our body. You can open up the chest, and you can even hang the head back. So it's about moving through and into positions to really enjoy the success of what we've done in our I Move Freely class. From here, what we're going to do is bring the bottom up, so it's a ragdoll. I'm just going to hang here for a moment and let the back of the body lengthen. We're including in here the back of the hips. So we've worked the legs quite a bit with those lunges and squats, and we let the neck go, let the head relax. Quite often people might be coached through yoga techniques to bring the hands, hold onto the elbows on the opposite side, and just literally try and hang. And I like this kind of wafting in this position. Let me just show you from this angle. If your mat is a bit squishy, you could come off for a little more stability. So you've got this ability to just move around in this position a little bit. And just enjoy that movement. From here, we're going to curl up slowly. And again, just soften the knees a little bit if that makes it easier. We're going to try and curl from the lower body, the lower spine, sorry. Let the arms hang. Curl up nice and slow. Take a big breath in, big reach up. And then press the hands up, palms up. Release, swap, and then push the other palm up. And then we take the feet out. Again, just a little soft kind of knee. Just take that reach over, but a little bit more dynamic. So we're just going to go from side to side, just as we finish through. So what we're doing here is inadvertently we are actually mobilizing the nervous system as well, because every time we reach, we're lengthening that median nerve in the arm. Same when we're in that flexed over position, we're lengthening through the sciatic nerve. So while not directly mirroring what we saw when we've done those median nerve releases, actually if you're feeling these a little bit, that could be what it is. Take the hands behind, just open up through the chest. So we get a nice stretch through the front of the body. Finish rounding the back one last time. Tuck the pelvis under, chin down. Take a breath in. So hopefully you enjoyed this week's I Move Freely session. Hopefully you're feeling like you're progressing. Now that we're in around about week 8, we've got another week or so to go, another 3 sessions on this particular plan. You can go back, watch others again. If you have a favourite, let me know. I'd really like to hear about it. And then the idea is that you could start to play with these, maybe create your own I Move Freely flows. That would be interesting. See you next time.